Civil war in the GOP. Has Utah become a swing state? Tonight on the Hinckley Report. Donald Trump resorts to desperate measures after his vulgar comments about women go viral. Utah politicians led the wave of Republicans renouncing their presidential candidate.
I'm out. I can no longer, in good conscience, endorse this person for president. You know, my wife and I, we have a 15-year-old daughter, and if I can't look her in the eye and tell her these things, I can't endorse this person.
Hillary Clinton copes with another round of WikiLeaks emails. All this drama led up to what has been called a historically negative presidential debate. Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and Evan McMullin are in a statistical dead heat. After 52 years, will Utah vote for a Democrat for president? What will happen to rising third-party candidates? And who does this hurt, Trump or Clinton? Good evening, and welcome to the Hinckley Report. Covering the week, we have Matt Canham, political reporter with the Salt Lake Tribune, Emily Clark, anchor with ABC4 News, and Steve Urquhart, former state senator. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We're thrilled to have you with us.
Happy to be here.
We have a lot to talk about in politics.
Yes, we do.
It's been a big week. Matt, I want to start with you.
Sure.
This is a week where 94% of the state of Utah has either seen or heard about the Trump tapes with what he said, with lewd comments about women. What kind of impact is that really having on the state of Utah?
It's devastating in the state of Utah. Utah voters, particularly Utah's Republican voters, were already very skeptical of Donald Trump as a candidate. His negatives were in the 70th percentile, which is absolutely abysmal. And then this happened, which made it even worse. And we're seeing in two polls that came out this week that his numbers are already sliding, and that it's possible that Utah can become a swing state in this last month of a presidential race, which is just something none of us would have fathomed a year ago.
Do you really think we are a swing state?
I actually think we do. I had a colleague yesterday ask me to guess who would win the presidential race in Utah. And I stared at him probably for a good 30 seconds in silence and said, I don't know. And I think that is a stunning development and fun for a political reporter as myself. It's the first time in my life, it's the first time in any of our lives, that we don't know who's going to win the presidential race in Utah a month out. That's just amazing.
So Emily, you were watching this very closely, particularly the comments about women, and this has been a huge issue through a lot of the campaign, but particularly lately where the female vote in the United States is just clearly not with Trump right now.
Most definitely.
Why is that the case?
Well, I think we knew Trump was nasty, if I could go as far as to say that. We knew there were problems there, but hearing his own words saying what we assumed was probably a situation is just devastating, because as a woman, you're not going to look at a man and respect him if he's going to say those things, such derogatory, terrible statements. And as women, we've come too far to allow someone like that to lead our country. So while probably not a big fan of Donald Trump, but to hear him say that takes it to a whole new level. And that's why the tape was so significant. It's not surprising. I'm sure that we assumed he said something like that. But to hear him saying that is something that I just don't think you can overcome.
It was also not just crude. It wasn't just bad language. He was saying that because he's a star,
because of who he is, he's
can
capable
grope a
of doing
woman
that
without asking. That's sexual assault. That is the definition of sexual assault. And that kind of behavior is beyond the pale in any setting. We as Americans, no matter where your political persuasion is, should be able to say, that's not appropriate.
Well, look at Billy Bush. He's not running for president. He is a talk show host. He does the news. He's going to lose his job just for being part of that conversation. So to see a man who said something like that still being able to be the president is in some way shocking, because as you said, those are such terrible, unbelievable statements.
Is there any way for Donald Trump to rehabilitate himself with women?
No. I think the damage is done. There's not enough time to fix that.
Can he lose without them or win without them?
I think you need women.
I mean, I
going to
think
lose
he was already well behind with women before. And one of the polls that came out this week in Utah showed Utah women favoring Clinton. Now, it was a split between multiple candidates. But even in a very conservative state like Utah, 31% of women, which was a plurality, were supporting Clinton over Trump or McMullin or Johnson.
Very interesting. Now, Senator Urquhart, something interesting that happened this week was maybe this tenuous connection that some of our elected officials had with Donald Trump. Matt said they kind of fell off, and a lot of them went very public about not being supporters of Donald Trump anymore. We saw in the intro Congressman Chaffetz, we saw Hatch make comments, our own governor. What kind of impact is that having on the state?
I think our leaders are reaching the place where they should have been all along. Trump joined the Republican Party in 2012. He's not conservative. I mean, what has his platform been? If it's not conservative values, it has mostly just been hate. That he hates the most, he hates the loudest. And so when you throw on that the fact that he's, without dispute, a creep, there's really no reason left to support him. And so I think that the politicians the Republicans who never supported him, they'll get a big bump from that in the future. And the ones who hang on to the very end, they're going to have a lot of explaining to do. Mark my word, after this election, a month after, a year after, you will not find a Republican who's anywhere near the center admit having voted for Donald Trump.
But there are Utah Republicans who are sticking with him at this point. Senator Orrin Hatch has not said he won't vote for him. He disavowed his comments, but made it clear that he's still in Trump's camp. Representative Rob Bishop is also supporting him. Representative Chris Stewart said that he hopes Trump would drop out. But politicians pick their words very carefully. He did not say he wouldn't vote for him. Even Jason Chaffetz said, I rescind my endorsement. He did not say, I will not vote for him.
It gets a lot worse from here to the end. I think they all will abandon the crazy train by the time we hit Election Day.
Well, how does this play for both of those? So you have like the governor and Chaffetz, but you have Bishop and Hatch on both sides. Maybe you're talking about the words, whether they're supporting or not supporting. How do you think this plays out for them? Maybe in the end they change their tune, but how does it play for them with the electorate?
It's awkward. It's very awkward at this stage. They are elected by Republicans to represent Republican ideals. Their party, through the totally normal primary system, elected a candidate that they now find dissatisfying, distasteful, someone that they want to disavow. But that's their party. And there is a core group of Republicans in Utah who are going to stay with Trump. Now, what percent that is, if that's in the 20s, in the 30s, doesn't seem like it's going to be in the 40s. Those are people who are in their base.
But Matt, it is the Republican Party. It is their party. That's the party they have to preserve. The Republican brand prior to Trump was very strong. Republicans control 3 times as many state legislatures as Democrats, more than twice as many governorships. This is a brand that has been doing just fine. We've alternated presidencies since 1993. It was Republicans' turn. Republicans have their greatest majorities in Congress since 1929. You can't jeopardize all that with one really bad candidate. If he is colossally bad, you have to cut him loose. I think the elder statesmen of the party, the wiser heads, they will cut him loose very soon.
Well, which they have. They've come out and say, we even heard our governor saying that there's no way I can support this. But then you see those other members, different Republicans rather, just as you said, saying, I don't appreciate what he said, I don't like what he said, but still in a way supporting him. Because I think they're really stuck in a tough spot. What are we supposed to do? We have to support the Republican, but we can't support someone who's basically talking about groping women at the same time. So I think it's just a weird, delicate balance that they have to deal with.
And everyone who's said they're not going to vote for Trump have not identified how they are going to vote. Mia Love, Mike Lee, Governor
And they're not going
Herbert.
to.
They are in this
can't.
awkward position of, okay, I'm not voting for the Republican, I'm a Republican. What do I do with my vote? Mitt Romney said he wasn't going to vote for Donald Trump in March. Mitt Romney has still not said how he's going to vote.
And he never told anybody how to vote. He said, this is the problem, don't support him, but he never gave a solution to anybody. And that's what the problem's been the whole time.
So for those that are not really supportive of Donald Trump, and Hillary Clinton also in the state of Utah.
It's not an issue. It is not even an option for these Republican
It's
leaders.
not really where they're going. So how do people in the state of Utah kind of rationalize this question right here, which is, if you won't vote for Donald Trump, so you don't vote for the Republican, you are essentially handing this to Hillary Clinton.
You know, that's what House Speaker Greg Hughes, that's the point that he makes when I've talked to him about this. And there is logic to that there's really 2 candidates that have a choice or a chance to be president. And not voting for one or not voting for either is helping whoever has the lead. Well, right now, Hillary Clinton has the lead. So there is some logic there. I think there are voters, though, who are looking at this and saying, I want to feel good about where I put my vote. That when I get my vote by mail and I fill it out, then I put it in the mail, that I made a choice that I can live with. And that's where I find so fascinating, talking to voters throughout Utah, is how they are making this decision is very personal. isn't the same for every individual at all.
And you have three camps right now because you have, I'm going to vote for Hillary. I support Hillary. I'm going to vote for Donald. I may not like it, but I got to vote Republican. And then you have this third party. They're sitting around kitchen tables around our state saying, what are we going to do? I want my vote to count. I want to feel good about it. But what am I going to do? And I'm afraid, and I would fear that those people are just not going to go to the polls, which is going to be problematic in a bigger picture. Because if you're not going to vote for Donald Trump, you should be supporting other Republicans if that's what party you're part of. But if you're not going to vote at all, this is a debate that people are having everywhere because you want to feel good about your vote. And at this point, there's no option.
You know, I think the option for Republicans is you have to protect the Senate. What are the things, the only plausible reason why people are saying that, in my mind, plausible, why they're saying they support Trump is the Supreme Court nominations. Yeah. If you want to protect the Supreme Court nominations, then make sure you have a majority in the Senate. If you want to avoid single-payer health care, make sure you have a majority in the Senate. And so Trump, by going after McCain, by going after Rubio, and I think he's just going to start flailing and put more senators in jeopardy, you have to cut him loose, you have to protect the Senate. So I think that's why a lot of folks are going to feel just fine not voting. A lot of good, solid Republicans are going to feel just fine not voting for Donald Trump.
But you got to vote for the other candidates and the other different offices that are open for election.
So I look at a lot of polling across the United States, and on this issue it's quite interesting because while Donald Trump's negatives are so high and he is going down in a lot of swing states in polls, it's not hurting the Republican Senate candidates in those states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida nearly as much as you would expect it would. Now, it might in these last couple of weeks, particularly how they respond to him. But there are voters making a distinction between Donald Trump, the Republican, and everyone else, the Republican.
But remember, it was when Monday or Tuesday that he turned the guns on his own.
So let's talk about that for a second.
So I don't think polls have reflected that yet.
So he has turned his guns, right? So I think the phrase was the shackles have come off, right? Yeah. He's no longer worrying about the Republican Party itself. How does that play out? Maybe, Emily, you can start by talking about that a little bit because if he's kind of loosely associated with some of the establishment and he's in an active war with Paul Ryan.
Well, the first question I have is, were the shackles ever on him? If they were very loose because he has been a loose cannon and has done whatever Donald Trump wants to do. And Matt, I really liked your point that there's Donald Trump and then there is everybody else. And Paul Ryan at this point is just trying to protect himself. He's not necessarily going, okay, I hate Trump, but he's going to be protecting himself because he's in a very delicate spot. He can't support him, but he can't not support him.
But why? Why are they still supporting Trump? I think it's because I think clearly they fear a faction of the party.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a very energized part. Here's my Republican fantasy. The Republican Party, hate has been ascendant inside the party. I mean, hate gays, hate immigrants. There's a lot of hate there. I think let's package all that hate up in our candidate and Trump, excise it. I think that the Republican Party after this election emerges much stronger. We get back to policies and away from hate.
Which is an idea that maybe this time with Trump, whether it is bad as you might think it is, could end up being a better situation for the Republican Party in the big picture. It's not good this year, but maybe it will be in 4 years.
In 2008, when Barack Obama won, everyone assumed the Republican Party would have an internal skirmish, figure out who they are, and reemerge in 2012. And then that didn't really happen. And then after 2012, everyone thought the Republican Party would figure it out for 2016. And clearly that did not happen.
No.
So someone needs to emerge as a leader in that party. We had 17 Republican primary candidates, which is a historically large field, but also shows that there was not one strong leader. So whether that's Paul Ryan or someone like, I don't know, an Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who has been against Donald Trump for months. I think if for the Republican Party to reconstitute itself, like you said, Steve, I think you're going to need someone to step up. And we're not going to know that for the next couple of years. Yeah.
Well, how do you respond to President Obama yesterday? He talked about some of these Republicans who are either tepid in their support or they're saying, I'm focusing on races down line. He said, you are stoking the swamp of crazy. You cannot take away the support that you gave. You're a former elected official, senator. I mean, how do you get to something like that? Say, I'm not with him, but you are, you were, you can't stop. Is that true?
You know, first off, I think the president is far too partisan. I wish he would worry about governing. You know, I think it's kind of beneath the dignity of the office to weigh in on something like this in the way he does. But I think, you know, I do tend to agree that supporting Trump at this point is really supporting a lot of bad ideals, bad practices. Again, you're not supporting conservative values. So why are people continuing to support Trump? From someone who really believes in Republican principles, I don't see why this is our guy. Why are we left? He's decisive. He hates Hillary. I mean, I think that is what Republicans agree on. They really don't like Hillary, but you have to have something that you put forward. If you're not backed by the underlying principles of the party, then you have nothing. You're just flailing at the other candidate.
So, Emily, I'm kind of curious, and then we'll ask about the Tribune on this too. The Deseret News took sort of, not completely unprecedented, but it's been over 80 years since they've taken a position on a candidate, something they just haven't done. And they clearly went after Donald Trump. They didn't endorse anyone else, but they went after Donald Trump. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have on Utahns?
I think it has a large impact, but it's kind of a no-brainer because I think a lot of people already feel that way as it is. We don't like Donald Trump. Okay, that's fine. But no one has come out and said, what is the solution? We don't like Donald Trump. We don't like Hillary Clinton. But then what are we going to do? And I feel that while Deseret News, they did not make an endorsement. They explained what a lot of people already feel. There's not been a solution. And I think that's where that Mr. McMullen comes in, where the Evans factor comes in, is that, okay, maybe that's a vote I can make that feels better. But as Tim Kaine told ABC4 Utah's Glenn Mills, my coworker, just yesterday, a vote for a third party, a vote for an independent is a definite positive for Hillary Clinton. So we're all kind of stuck in this boat that if you don't want to vote for Donald Trump and you're a Republican, you don't like Hillary, what are you going to do? So yet again, the Deseret News didn't give us an endorsement. They said no Trump, but nobody has said a solution because unfortunately, there really isn't one.
That's so interesting. Well, the Tribune thought so, right? They endorsed Hillary Clinton.
A lukewarm endorsement of Hillary Clinton from our editorial board, which is different than it was in 2012. I mean, that's the one thing I think you need to look at the Tribune endorsements this year. It is not the same Tribune of 2012. We have a new owner, Paul Huntsman, who's a Republican. We have a new editor-in-chief, and they got together, and so I had no idea what they were going to do this year. Now, as it got closer to the endorsement, the only print publication that has endorsed Donald Trump is the National Enquirer. So I didn't expect us to be in that short list. So I kind of assumed this, but reading it is what's important. And from that, it's not that this is love for Hillary Clinton and her campaign. There is, from the owner and the editorial board, there's a belief that she's a more pragmatic, middle-of-the-road politician who could probably do the job, and then the other guy they just didn't like as much as the Deseret News didn't like him.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is all connected because we've had this nice talk about the bad week for Donald Trump, and except for that, any other time this WikiLeaks
Would have been a horrible week for Hillary Clinton.
It would have been, right?
Oh,
so why is it not? But you've been digging into it particularly,
Right.
Matt, into what's happening there. So why is that not such a big deal? But maybe do a side note too about one of the big issues there where Hillary Clinton kind of gave an idea that there's a private position and a public position.
So what happened was someone, and our government believes it was the Russians, hacked into John Podesta's emails and gave them to the group WikiLeaks. And now we have all of his emails. John Podesta is a very key aide to Hillary Clinton. And in there were all kinds of things about how they were going to attack their opponents. There were copies of the speeches that she gave to Wall Street firms that she didn't want anyone to see. And there is just amazing detail in there. Now, their response is, well, this is hacked by the Russians. We're not sure this is legitimate, and that's their defense.
I thought it was very Lincoln-esque.
Well, yes, from what she said in the debate, which was not her best answer in the debate. But there has been no proof that any of these emails are anything but authentic, and they are damaging. As you said, in one of these speeches, she talks about the need to have a private position and a public position. And this just reinforces some of the negative views people have of Hillary Clinton as being politically motivated to the point where she'll do what she needs to do to get elected. And people do not want that. They want authenticity. They don't want to hear that their politician is telling a group of rich Wall Street donors one thing and the American public the other. If this was any other week, this would be a massive story. It would hurt her poll numbers. But if you're the average viewer in America, or the average news producer in America, and you have a story about that, about trade deals and what Hillary Clinton said behind the scenes and publicly, or women coming forward and saying the Republican presidential candidate sexually assaulted me, which one are you going to lead your news broadcast with?
Yeah,
You know,
Trump.
I mean, at that point, they're not on the same scale, even though the Hillary Clinton revelations are important. They deserve to be looked at. They are damaging. They're something that campaign is struggling to overcome, and it will have long-term ramifications for her. But in the immediate, in this moment, it's hard to turn the attention away from Donald Trump.
The Republicans, they might have picked the one candidate who couldn't beat Hillary Clinton. I mean, this would just be...
I think the Democrats would say the same thing.
I mean, can you imagine if the Republicans had a candidate who was, somewhat likable and had a good track record, her explaining away the public-private position, right, explaining away how somehow this is Lincoln-esque, explaining away how there were thumbs all over the scale when she ran against Bernie. This would be an unbelievably bad week for her. Instead, she's gaining ground.
Polls are going great for her.
So I'm going to get to Emily on some local races, but one final thing on that, Matt, because you got great sources. Yeah. What's coming next out of those emails?
Well, the Salt Lake Tribune's going to have a story about these emails because there's some Utah connections.
Wow.
And I think that because there was a concern about Mitt Romney as a potential candidate. And in these emails, one thing that's awkward and one thing that always surprises me as a reporter is people are very candid in their emails to their coworkers and friends. They think that none of this is ever going to come out, even though...
Oh, that's a nice tease.
Okay.
I can't wait to see
over
this.
and over.
All right. It's an email.
Out.
It can come back. You got to be careful.
It's out there forever.
It happens with
Once you
Colin
say
Powell and the Democratic Party. It can come up at any moment.
Nice job selling papers. Well,
right.
we can't wait to see that. Okay,
Good
Emily,
try.
very quickly.
Yes.
In the last few minutes we have of the show, we have some interesting polls this week that are showing that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton very close in the state of Utah. One was neck and neck.
Yeah.
One has Donald Trump up just slightly. But the big surprise was Evan McMullen.
Yeah.
At between 20 and 22%. Why is he doing so well?
I can tell you exactly why he's doing well. As I mentioned before, you've got your three groups. I'm going to vote for Hillary. I'm going to vote Republican. I don't know who I'm going to vote for. And Evan fills the need and fills that void for that third group. They want to vote for someone they feel good about. They want to vote for someone they like. And here comes Mr. Evan. He fills that void. He is a BYU alum. He is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's posting pictures of himself at BYU football games. So while nobody might know him out there in America, for the Utah voter, he's prime. He's almost as good as Mitt Romney.
Yeah, we'll help on this too. And as elected official, you have to help me, Senator. In this same poll, 48% of the people in the state of Utah didn't even know enough to comment if they have an opinion on him or not. So we have a fairly unknown person, CIA operative, right? It's okay, he's unknown,
Allegedly,
I guess.
yeah.
Ooh, yeah, interesting.
Well, those documents are private. We don't know. We can't prove that.
Okay, given that's the case.
Yes.
So there are a lot of people who don't know him in the state of Utah, yet 20 to 22%.
Because the people who do know him are going to support him. If you look on your Facebook feed, everyone's on Facebook, people who want a candidate they like are just flocking to Evan, and it's their decision to vote for him, even if not everybody knows him. But we should say in the same vein, Tim Kaine yesterday told my colleague Glenn Mills that a vote for Evan McMullen is a positive for Hillary Clinton. So while it might make your vote feel better, you are indirectly supporting the Democratic nominee.
You know, a lot of people are searching for hope, a good candidate. They see no great options. I think a great candidate emerged this week. The mustachioed dapper man in the red sweater, Kenneth Bone. Ken Bone 2016.
You think? Okay, fantastic.
Oh, that's who you're putting up?
Yeah, I mean, I have not publicly announced my decision.
I think you just did.
I just did.
Okay, good. Ken Bone.
Yeah, maybe it has more name recognition already because of that. That might be true as well. So when you put maybe these polling numbers together, if it is neck and neck for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, but if you really get 20 to 22% for McMullen and some for Gary Johnson, is Utah prime to go for a third party? What do you think?
I think Utah might. The hard part is this race has changed pretty much every 24 hours for the last week and a half. So what's going to happen in the next week, is going to have a huge impact on where those numbers go. Evan McMullen is new to the stage. He can make a misstep. I mean, the reason people are not going for libertarian Gary Johnson is that he messed up in a couple interviews with foreign policy answers that were surprising. And in Utah, his position on marijuana, and he wants to legalize it, isn't exactly popular. It's reasonable to assume someone who's not new to, or who is new to the stage could also have a mistake. More stuff about Donald Trump could and most likely will come out, at which point that could have an even more negative effect.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Because people are voting already, right, Senator?
Yeah.
We've received those mail-in ballots. Are already going to people's homes right now.
So say great stuff happens over the next few weeks. What happens here when people are already starting to submit their their ballots?
I don't have any sense of how this is going to turn out. I've talked to people, some of the Republicans in the state, and they're split between whether Evan McMullin can pull this off in this short period of time, or if at some point there'll be a regression back to the norm and Republicans will vote Republican. Democrats are still really excited at the moment that they have a chance that their nominee might win Utah.
And
that blows them away.
What if that happens? What if this state, which hasn't voted Democrats in LBJ, votes for a Democratic nominee? What a moral win for Hillary Clinton. Our 6 votes might not matter, but that's a win for her.
Utah voters are fantastic. I mean, they elected me for 16 years, so I have to say they're brilliant. But Utah voters, obviously, we are very Republican, but they try to do what they think is right, and I think they will want to cast a substantive value. They won't be able to vote for Trump. I think Utah goes for Hillary.
Wow. 24 and a half days, something like that. Wow. Lots going to happen. So glad to have all of you with us. Thank you. That is it for the Hinckley Report. For more political analysis and news of the week, please check out our Hinckley Report Web Extra online, and we will be back next week. Thank you and good night.